can't find love and marry after menopause. Again, that is not true. Hello, my name is Stanley Oji, and this is Family Connect, where we discuss real issues in real relationships involving real people. This is episode 15 of our ongoing discussion on mature, single, and waiting. In the past 2 episodes or so, we've been looking at the marriage prospects of divorced and widowed men as it has to do with mature single women, and the observation that even for women whose options society consider to be narrow, marrying previously married men, even when they are open to it, is usually considered a compromise. Now, we've looked at some of the logical and not so logical reasons why this is so, and I believe that we're able to bring some balanced perspective and some clarity, all right, to that particular conversation. Today we'll be looking at one of the greatest fears a lot of single mature women nurse very silently. It's usually not mentioned, it's usually not spoken about, but this is a real fear for a lot of single mature women. Indeed, I have noticed personally that it's almost a taboo subject for mature single women of faith, and that is the biological clock. Okay, it is something everybody somehow, has there. And of course, at the back of all of this looms that big M word, that is menopause, that fear of menopause, that fear that I'm going to hit that place that in the minds of a lot of single mature girls, that almost looks like the end of the road, as it were. Okay, so we're just going to be looking at that a bit, okay, and also bring some clarity to this particular issue. But just to be clear, this term, that is the biological clock, refers to the body's inbuilt notification system that regulates such functions as hunger, sleep, body temperature, blood pressure, and so on and so forth. But of course, when a single mature woman, even a mature woman that may be suffering delays in childbirth, talks about the biological clock, it is usually in the context of the anxieties over delays in marriage or childbearing. So yeah, it's the same term, but it means slightly different things in the general and of course in this specific context. And typically, as I said, looming in the background of that is the fear of menopause. So I think for the purpose of our discussion, it is important for us to bust some of the myths, okay, around menopause and the biological clock. And I think if we're not able to finish this in this episode, we'll just go on and continue in the subsequent episodes. Okay. Let's look at some of the myths. As I said, what exactly is menopause, for example? Menopause, because it's good for us to clear, what the definition. Let's look at what's correct before we start looking at the things that are not correct. What is menses, or should I say menopause? Sorry, exactly. Menopause basically talks about that natural and permanent cessation of menstrual periods and fertility. It's pretty simple, all right? That's natural and permanent cessation of menstrual periods, that monthly cycle that comes that ends in bleeding. And with the termination of that comes the termination of the ability to give birth to children naturally. All right, so, but there are lots of misconceptions, okay, around menopause and the so-called biological clock, which the general perception is that when menopause comes, the biological clock has stopped ticking or something like that. But that's not necessarily true, and we're going to try to address a couple of those today. All right. Okay. So, as I said, we've been able to settle that after menopause, a woman cannot have a child naturally. All right. But there are some misconceptions, as I've said, in terms of marriage, in terms of marriageability, in terms of sexual intimacy. And of course, the options are not options to motherhood, that is, are not completely closed to a woman just because the woman has gotten to menopause, because of course women who have no children due to either medical reasons or their marital circumstances should not be automatically excluded from the joy of motherhood. But first, let's clear some of those myths about menopause and biological clock. As I said, first of all, menopause does not automatically set in once you hit the age of 40 or once you enter your 40s. It's not automatic. Actually, the average age as at today is about 51, 52 for most women. That's the average. Of course, some women will get to menopause a little earlier. Some will get to menopause after 55. Okay. All right. So the fact that you are 35, don't be counting down 5 years, I'm going to hit menopause. That may not actually happen for the next 15 to 20 years. So just take it easy. Don't get stampeded. That's what this is all about. Okay. Now, the other very common misconception, the other common myth is that hitting menopause means that you are old. Okay. Menopause is menopause. Old age is old age. Okay. Because I personally know a lot of 60, 65-year-old women who've been menopausal, or should I say postmenopausal, for 15 to 20 years, and they still look awesome. They still have awesome sex life with their husbands and all of that. This would surprise you. But a lot of times we just have these ideas that life ends when menopause hits. It's not true. Okay? All right. So the third one, of course, is that you can't find love and marry after menopause. Again, that is not true. Believe it or not, there are men who really would rather marry a woman that does not want children or maybe cannot have children. All right. Sometimes they're looking for a mother for the children they've already had from a previous marriage. Maybe they lost their wives or maybe they are divorced, whatever it is that happened. Okay. I mean, in fact, a couple of years ago, I met a young lady actually in South Africa, and then she had these two gentlemen. She's a South African lady. She has these two gentlemen she was considering for marriage, and said, okay, yeah, there was this guy this guy is everything she wanted, but then this other guy, why this one is attractive is because this one does not want children, because believe it or not, she had already tied her tubes, and she was less than 35. She had never been married, but you know how it is around there. She's had two children already outside wedlock, and she just felt that the smartest thing to do in order not to keep having children was to have what is called a BTL. All right, so she tied her tube. So now she was going to get married. Excuse me. She was going to get married, okay, to somebody whom did not want children. So I said all of that to say that it is not, because the fear is that if I have gotten to menopause, then it is likely that I won't get a man to marry me, because who is going to marry me if I cannot give him children? It is not true. There are lots of men that had a conversation with a friend of late, and it was the same issue. It's not every man that is all keen about children. All right, so you can still find love and have a great love life after menopause. Fourthly, I'll just stop it here. There are so many more. Menopause marks the end of normal sex life. I've mentioned that. It's not true. A lot of women actually report that they experience increased libido, that is sex drive, and even better sexual expression after menopause. Okay, and sometimes there are just common sense reasons for that. Most times by the time women get to menopause, they are no longer encumbered with all the issues of motherhood and all of that. For women that are even married, that had children, by this time most of the children, or all of the children, probably had left home for school. She's no longer afraid of getting pregnant, and she just has her husband all to herself. So it's as if the honeymoon has gone full circle and they've come back to the honeymoon years again. So it's not true that your sex life shuts down, or that you don't have sex drive anymore just because you have gotten to menopause. That is not true. Of course, there are sexual difficulties that may be associated with menopause, but then again, sexual difficulties are not exclusive or peculiar to post-menopausal women. And a lot of those issues actually have very simple remedies. We don't have time to get into those, or there's not a platform for that. All right. Of course, there are lots of other myths, from sex becoming painful to your bones just snapping like toothpicks. Of course, those things, most of these things are outright falsehoods or just very wild exaggerations. It is not true. You can have a perfectly normal life even if you are post-menopausal. But bottom line is the anxiety surrounding the ticking biological clock for you as a single mature woman over 35 years, because usually that's where the anxiety is really kicking, has the potential to stampede you into making rash decisions about relationship, marriage, and childbearing. My counsel is that you take your time, okay? You can look at all the other episodes that we've had before this. We have like 15 previous episodes, and there are different things that we've looked at. And we're going to dive deeper into this topic in the next episode. We'll be looking at, I know the need for companionship, the need for having children, the need for intimacy. These are legitimate needs, okay? But I also believe that there are practical, godly options to answer those needs without having to compromise your values. And we're going to, as I said, we're going to dive deeper into this conversation in episode 16. My name is Stanley Oji, and this is Family Connect, where we discuss real issues in real relationships involving real people. I look forward to you joining me in the next episode. Until then, be good. Bye-bye. God bless you.